a cloud, having fun today in the great white outdoors. The Brollys.
Rainbows climb, clouds drift by, Brollys fly through a magic sky. Is it real? Are they dreams? Nothing appears to be what it seems. Then far away I can hear a voice in the weatherhouse call out a name. Mr. Brolly, it's time for the rain.
Harry was trying to go to sleep, but no sooner had he closed his eyes than he opened them again. Tucked up beside Harry in bed were his toys, Elephant and Hippo. Snake, as always, lay on the rug by the door, and Bird was perched on the chest of drawers. Harry stared down at his patchwork quilt. It was different from other quilts. Instead of flowery scraps of material, it was made of little embroidered pictures of rainbows, stars and planets, clouds, and great flashes of lightning in a dark and stormy sky. It had been made a long, long time ago. On the wall hung Harry's weatherhouse. If the day was going to be fine and sunny, Mrs. Brolly came to her door. If the day was going to be wet and cloudy, Mr. Brolly came out. But of course, they never came out together, for it is impossible for a day to be both wet and dry at the same time. But what would happen if they both came out together? Wondered Harry, and he sat up and stared at the weatherhouse. As he stared, the doors seemed to grow larger. His bed grew smaller, and he found himself at the entrance of the weatherhouse. A light was shining from the door, through which Harry could see Mr. Brolly no longer fixed to his wooden stand, but moving freely about the room. Harry was standing by the window in the weatherhouse. Mrs. Brolly was close by, stitching new patches onto her quilt. On each new patch was the picture of a snowflake. Outside, snow was drifting gently down. "Brolly makes them, my dear," said Mrs. Brolly. "And would you believe it? He makes each one different from all the others. I say to him, 'Brolly, why do you bother? There's few that know, and few would care.' But he says, 'Mrs. B, I am an artist, and an artist must create.'" She sounded very proud of Mr. Brolly. But when Harry turned back to the window, each drifting flake looked just like another. Harry began to yawn. "Why don't you go on an expedition?" said Mrs. Brolly. "All small boys should go on an expedition." It was a wonderful idea, thought Harry. "I could go to the North Pole," he said. "Indeed you could," said Mrs. Brolly, and reaching into her bag, she brought out a compass. "This will help you find your way," she said. From the back door of the weatherhouse, Harry looked out. The snowflakes were falling faster than ever. The little cloud had come from Mrs. Brolly's bag, and he came up behind Harry and butted him gently. "Fly, fly," he said. "Aren't you coming with me?" said Harry. But the little cloud just drifted quickly to where Mrs. Brolly sat. "Oh," it said. Harry went out into the garden, and as he stepped onto the path, a beautiful red sled appeared. Tied to the sled were a number of bundles. Taking hold of the rope which was tied to the sled, Harry set off on his great adventure. Halfway down the path, he stopped and turned and looked back at the weatherhouse. It looked warm and safe and comforting. Mrs. Brolly was still sitting and stitching, and the little cloud was hovering over her knee. "Now you be careful, my dear," he heard Mrs. Brolly say. "Don't you go raining on my quilt." For a moment, Harry wanted to turn and run back. Then he thought of how exciting it was to be going on an expedition, and of how brave everyone would think he had been. Grasping the rope tightly, he went down the garden path. But as he went, he saw that everything was covered with thick snow, so that he couldn't tell which was the bush which bore the red berries in autumn, or which was the tree where little bird liked to sing in the sun. Then he came to a part of the garden where nothing but snow lay before him. There was not one footprint to be seen, not one paw print, or the print of a bird's foot. Harry would be the first to make his mark. In the weatherhouse, Mr. Brolly came hurrying into the kitchen, smiling happily. "My dear," he said, "I've made flurries of snow. I've made drifts of snow. I've made—" Then he stopped and looked around. "Where's the boy?" he said. "I've sent him on an expedition," said Mrs. Brolly. "He's gone to the North Pole." "An expedition!" cried Mr. Brolly. "To the North Pole? But he's just a small boy." "All small boys should go on an expedition," said Mrs. Brolly. "Sometimes I think you are too hard, Mrs. B," said Mr. Brolly, as he strode from the room, leaving Wilkins quivering with fear at the thought of his friend Harry alone in the snow. In the control room, Mr. Brolly pressed the smiley button on the computer. "Hello," said the computer, "and what can I do for you today?" "I want to see what's happening to Harry," said Mr. Brolly. The computer sighed. It's very boring," it said. "He's just plodding along in the snow." "I want to see Harry," said Mr. Brolly. "Oh, very well," said the computer. "See? There's nothing at all to worry about." But even as it spoke, Harry stepped into a snowdrift and completely disappeared. "Whoops," said the computer. "Oh, the brave little chap!" cried Mr. Brolly. The little cloud had floated into the room and was hovering over his left shoulder and staring intently at the computer screen. "Do something to help him!" cried Mr. Brolly. "Oh, very well," said the computer. In the garden, Harry was suddenly pelted on all sides by snowballs. They were not very hard, and they didn't hurt, but they surprised him. There was no one in the field. He was being attacked by a phantom snowball thrower. "What are you doing?" cried Mr. Brolly in amazement. "It's a snowball fight," said the computer. "All small boys like a snowball fight." "Only with other small boys," said Mr. Brolly. "Well, how was I to know?" said the computer. "It doesn't say anything about that in my databank." It wiped the picture from the screen and hummed quietly to itself. "I've made him something he'll really like," it said at last. "Something you really would find at the North Pole." "What is it?" asked Mr. Brolly. "A bear," said the computer. "A bear?" shouted Mr. Brolly. "I must go to him at once," and strode from the room. A moment later, he was heard crashing about in the big cupboard in the kitchen, crying, "Where are my snowshoes? Where's my woolly hat?" "What a fuss," said the computer, still humming quietly to itself. A moment later, a large parcel shot from the slot of the computer, and it fell on top of the little cloud and almost flattened him. The little cloud bore up bravely under the weight of the parcel. He knew that it was for Harry. "Blippi!" cried the little cloud, and into the snowstorm he went. Harry had pitched his tent in the middle of the garden. He had untied some of the bundles. There was a flask of hot soup and a mug. There was a woolly hat and a pair of mittens. The tent itself had been one of the larger bundles, and one mysteriously shaped parcel had been a pair of huge snowshoes. Harry had tried them on, but they were much too big. All around him lay the snow-covered garden, which seemed to go on forever. As he gazed, he held the mug of soup in both hands. The warm woolly hat flopped down over his ears, but a cold tear ran down his cheek. Comforting though hot soup and woolly hats may be, they're not a friend to sit by your side. So Harry was very glad to see the little Cloud coming towards him, carrying the parcel. "Oh, Cloud!" he cried happily. "Big box," said the little Cloud, dropping the parcel at Harry's feet. He felt very proud of himself, as well he might. "Cloud!" said Harry, for these two words were the first real words the little Cloud had spoken. But then, "Oogle," it said with a sigh, and flopped over Harry's knee and went to sleep. Inside the weather house, Mr. Brolly was telling Mrs. Brolly all about the bear. "A bear?" cried Mrs. Brolly. "A positive brute of a beast," said Mr. Brolly. "But I shall capture him, Mrs. B." "I have no doubt of it, Brolly," said Mrs. Brolly. "But is that quite the right equipment for catching a bear?" "It is my only equipment," said Mr. Brolly, wearing his hat tied to his head with one of Mrs. Brolly's stockings and with tennis rackets on his feet, being unable to find either his woolly hat or his snowshoes. Over his shoulder he carried a large butterfly net. "Oh, Brolly, what a hero you are," said Mrs. Brolly, watching him go. "An artist and a hero. That's my Brolly." In the tent, scarcely anything could be seen, for the thickly falling snow hid what little light remained. So the little Cloud made a sparkling thunderbolt, which brightened the tent up wonderfully. As Mr. Brolly made his way over the garden, there, thrown against the wall of the tent, was the shadow of a huge bear. "My boy, help is at hand!" cried Mr. Brolly, and without a thought for his own safety, he burst into the tent. There, by the light of the thunderbolt, he saw Harry and the little Cloud, gazing at the present from the computer. A stout toy bear, with a very black nose and eyes, and a pleasant smile. "Mr. Brolly!" said Harry in surprise. "I came to rescue you," said Mr. Brolly. He felt very foolish and didn't quite know what to do with his butterfly net. "Dear Mr. Brolly," said Harry, "I'm going to finish the expedition," he said. "Good man," said Mr. Brolly. "Keep warm." Mr. Brolly, on his way back to the weather house, turned and peered into the falling flakes, but could see nothing at all. "Keep going, my boy," he called. "You can make it." "My bold, brave hero," cried Mrs. Brolly, when at last he staggered into the weather house. But Mr. Brolly just sighed. "I'm worried about the boy," he said. "He still has 2 bundles left on the sled," said Mrs. Brolly. "2 useful bundles." "Oh, dearest," said Mr. Brolly, "what a comfort you are." He pressed the smiley button, and together they gazed at the picture, which the computer put up on the screen. And there they were, Harry carrying a flag and wrapped in the patchwork quilt. Then, as Mr. and Mrs. Brolly watched, Harry planted the flag. For all expeditions to the pole end with the planting of a flag, as does this tale.